But critically, our governments have to pay attention to this, and this is one of the areas I hope that after the SDGs and the others can also bring us together in pursuing. The other area that I think calls for, and I talked about attitudes, also is that often young people, particularly after school, are put under pressure to attain a certain status, which often, if you are observing from other people, they may have gone through a long time to get to that kind of status. It makes it difficult for young people to start thinking that they have to go through internships. Some internships are not even appreciated. Some internships are paying. Rwanda is doing amazing things in the e-mobility space. They are running a cashless system. And so it allows for a lot of room for innovation and great thoughts. Unfortunately, we find some youth using the same technology that's supposed to enhance development for negative things. And so that must be checked. I have worked over 14 years with young people who have been involved in crime. And cyber crime is one of the things that is very attractive. I think it does pay well in one breath. But then when you are also caught, you have to pay the price, unfortunately. I'll talk about leadership. We cannot complete this discussion without the mention of leadership. And I'm critical about leadership in Africa because when the leaders make difficult or make unfortunate decisions, it's the young people who suffer for it. And what I want to mention here is the fact that we are not paying attention. If we want a youth-driven development agenda for the continent, we are not paying attention to climate change issues, and it will come back to haunt us very badly. And with that, I will talk about Galamsey in Ghana. I want to talk about the Zamazamas in South Africa. I want to talk about DRC and how they use young people to mine illegally coltan. And we must, as a continent, speak about these issues, and leadership must be seen. The young people are observing. It's what in common parlance or ordinary language you say, monkey see, monkey do. And we must get into that space where leadership is taking a bold step to step on these, to get out of these things. The last I will mention is on partnerships. In the past, various people have complained, and I've experienced this, various people have complained about how when you go outside to the West and you mention that you are from Africa, they assume Africa is one country. And everybody is assuming, oh, do you know Nyerere? Do you know Abiola? And you are saying you are from Ghana. And it's unfortunate that contextualizing Africa has been lost on many, because the assumption is that if you are from Africa, you must be from a war-torn area, or you must be from a poverty-ridden country. And it's almost always...
Right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Mrs. Abena Asomaning Antwi. She is the Managing Director, Africa Environmental Sanitation Consult. And she's hit on a number of points. And I told you early on that we are going to have thought-provoking presentations this morning, after which we'll have our questions. I'll reserve my comments for now. And we'll go on to have the two other presenters in the first round before we come up with our questions. So when we get to the questions and answers point, I'll bring up all the points and the questions that I've put down, and I'll be asking her. We'll take a quick breaker. When we are back, we'll have the next presentation from Joe Eshun, who is the Chief Executive of Deloitte Antwi.
And Gasem Extra 42.5M is the best choice for the biggest construction work. Never believe that one grade of cement can be used for all jobs. Choose Gasem Cement always.
3 cement grades, unique quality. Gasem, the nation builder.
right, so you're welcome back to the Business Roundtable brought to us by Ishmael Yamson and Associates. We've just listened to Dr. Mrs. Abena Asomaning Antwi. She was talking to us about quite a number of things. The fact that the youth of Africa today want to get rich immediately they complete school, and we need to have a critical look at that, areas of agriculture, climate change, and so on and so forth. We would have the second presentation, and I would introduce this guest. I would go a bit of a detail, and it says this man that we are about to listen to, his name is Joe Eshun, and he's currently the chief of the governments of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda in several sectors, including health and education. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Eshun is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Deloitte East Africa, and it covers, as we have stated early on, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. He is joining us via Zoom, and so we'll listen to his presentation via Zoom. Joe, if you can hear me, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I can see you live and colored here. I hope you can see us from our location here in Ghana as well.
Yes, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So if you can hear us, we will welcome you with a round of applause, then you can take over. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Joe Eshun.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon from Nairobi. And it's 12:38, and it's actually 21 degrees in Nairobi. And Michael, thank you very much for inviting me to this very important round table. And I will, because I'm presenting from a distance, I will let the organizers know when to move my slide deck. So to start, what is interesting is I'm a 52-year-old man, and I believe I still have lots of energy and passion for the work I do. But when I look back to the ages of 16 to 30, I realized that I had more energy than I do now. And on reflection, I actually do think that the three organizations that I've worked for could have taken much more from me. My paper today will focus on moving from learning to earning in the majority of our population and a significant portion of our economic life force. But the issue is young people between the ages of 15 and 35, already our prioritization for education across Africa, we are still facing, to some extent, a slightly over-educated but underutilized market, where more of our young people are, gaining access to skills, but not finding the opportunities to put the skills to use. So we must ask ourselves, at what point would the learning of our young people actually translate to earning? And I can see a mismatch at the moment. So what I want to do today, if you can move to the next slide, is to share with you the objective of my presentation. What I want to do is to look at how private sector can be at the forefront of youth development in Africa to help address the gap between learning and earning. And at the end of the presentation, I hope that my colleagues on the panel and us will have practical ideas that we can all rally around across Africa. So I'm going to cover 4 things. And if you can move to the next slide, which is the content slide. The first thing I'm going to look at is why is there a gap between learning and earning, and why is it widening? The second is, at a high level, what can private sector do to contribute to youth development in Africa? The third, and will be very brief, I still believe that government have some role to play. So what can governments do to contribute to youth development? And then I will conclude. So if you can move to the next slide. And this slide, what it shows, is an interesting point for me. So if you look at the transition between our education system and the way we participate in the economy, it is marred with really structural challenges. I believe that the gaps we see today with regards to young people's participation in the economy is actually by design, and it's not necessarily tied to whether young people are doing enough in their own individual right, in the way that can help us. Many of our current systems are feeding information to our young people without teaching them how to actually create value. And we have socially viewed vocational training with disdain. And while these skills are actually necessary for our people to build and work in the manufacturing economies. So we have really also siloed the workforce and professional training from being embedded in our education system. And this, for me, is a real challenge for us. We must remember, however, that training young people to participate in development starts with building character and values that are really shaped in childhood and young adulthood. So we really tend to expect that all our children will focus on really standard subjects and more transparent environment that will allow flexibility for them to thrive. So at Deloitte, we did an interesting survey. We call it the Deloitte Millennial Survey. And the insight here for me is that 70% of millennials expect that their employers will focus on societal or mission-driven issues. So you can all agree that no other generation has exerted such an impact on the way we do business, on employee experience, or on customer expectations than this generation. The choices that young people take, where they work, where they buy, who they buy from, are more aligned with their values than any other generation. So we might want to start bringing young people to the table in more tangible ways. So what I want to do is I want to focus on the role that the private sector can play. So if you can move to the next slide to look at what the private sector can do to contribute to youth development. So on the topic of resourcing, I want to emphasize that there is a gap that we often do not discuss enough. And I think Dr. Abena did mention this. Africa's biggest employer is still agriculture, but we have not aligned the success factor in this industry to drive youth engagement in it. And according to the World Bank, non-farming sectors, including banking, insurance, will not be able to produce enough jobs and economic opportunities to absorb all the graduates in Africa. So agriculture is a route that we have to really consider. And we must consider addressing access to land, financing, and large-scale agriculture options for young people to drive this sector as well. So what I'll do now is to go to the next slide to look at the 4 key things that a private sector can contribute to address equity and support young people to participate in development. So if you go to that slide, the first point is scaling finance for startups. And on this panel, there's a lot of bankers on the panel, and they probably will be able to relate to what I'm going to talk about. African businesses are generally undercapitalized, impacting their ability to grow. That's a known fact. You know, I've been in East Africa since 1995, and I look at the Nairobi startup scene. It has faced a lot of issues where they are now having to have Silicon Valley-based faces at the forefront of their companies as a strategy to raise capital from the West. So consequentially, this has often led to a stream of shareholder value exiting the continent as startups grow and start breaking even. So Flutterwave, some of you may know Flutterwave from Nigeria. This Nigeria-based payment company has just been valued at over $1 billion, and they have raised $170 million in March. This was solely funded by American firms. So the challenge is that local financiers are risk-averse around young businesses, and at our own expense, because we are leaving our disruptive startups to be funded by the West or a large region-wide alumni network and partnership where other private sector players can play. And I think this is very important to encourage young people in the region. So our experience with YALI brings me to my third point, which is significant participation in the intervention designed for young people is required. And the question is, are we, the private sector, willing to invest our time and resources to develop demand-driven programs for young people? Are we engaging government and the international donor players around policy on the kind of skills that we need to see from young people to build a better talent pipeline and develop incentives that will also influence participation of the private sector? And that is the third challenge that we have. And the last one that I want to talk about is committing to make a shift in our workplace cultures as private sector. I believe this will allow us to pay better attention to young people's inputs and contributions to how we do business, and in the long run, how we grow our economies. Because look, the viewpoint of younger generations will be critical to creating a new normal in the post-COVID world. And all corporates, all organizations need to reset and listen to their younger employees to create a better normal for our countries and to set an example to our society that can ensure that young people will take the steering wheel and drive change. And I believe this will be profitable if we do that. So culture, to me, is significant because all of us know culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you want fresh ideas, we cannot bring them into an archaic environment and be unwilling to change the way of doing things to implement the commitments we take to the young people. So that covers my second point. I want to move quickly to my third point, my third area, which is how government can contribute to youth development. So if you can move to that slide, slide 8. So I've spoken about private sector's engagement, but I do want to wrap up by emphasizing that the private sector cannot do it all. We still cannot leapfrog the public sector's significant role in youth-driven development. Youth participation in economic activity is a structural issue. It's rooted in economic growth and policy more than anything else. So I'll wrap up by reiterating that youth-driven development will begin by, one, a radical shift in our education system and ways of learning to jobs for its people. So if you go to my final slide, I would like to conclude here that, you know, we are in uncertain times. We're all very tired with COVID. But despite this uncertain and discouraging conditions, I am convinced that millennials, Generation Zs, they expressed impressive resiliency and resolve to improve the world, even during this time of COVID. So as we rebuild our economies and society, youth intervention should not be isolated from the wider conversation around economic development that requires massive overhauls, significant investing to address broader issues. There is an African proverb that states that what a child learns in youth will continue in old age. Look around us and see what these millions of young people are learning now, and be fearful of what the future holds for us if we do not intervene. The youth can walk faster, but the elders know the way. And this is where we as a private sector should come in and show the way so that the fast pace of the youth can take us to a better developed state. And to the young people on this session, please take the advice of Steve Jobs and find work in what you love to do. Young people, you are resilient, and they are committed to changing the world. The conversation moving forward of youth development must continue to be intertwined with a wider conversation around economic development. Thank you all for listening.
Right, so ladies and gentlemen, Joe Eshun, he is the Chief Executive Officer of Deloitte. We are happy to have you, and then that was a very powerful presentation. If you are still online, I'm sure you will still stay on for the question and answer session. Quite a number of revelations and quite a number of issues being raised up there that needs attention. We are preparing for our next presenter, We'll have a quick break, and when we come back, this is a person you want to listen to. Stick and stay with us.
Anywhere you dare, Stanbic data.
Akosia, I'm awful. I have to go deposit some money at the bank and buy some things at the mall.
Okay, but deposit money at this time. Which bank is still open?
Oh, Akosia. With a Stanbic ATM, even without your debit card, you can deposit money at the ATM. And you know the ATM doesn't close. It is 24/7.
Oh, wow. That's good, You know, as for me, when I close late, I have to carry the money on me home with all the risks. And sometimes even when I'm asleep and I hear mosquitoes making noise in my ears, I have to wake up and check if the money is still there.
Oh, Akosia, don't make me laugh.
I'm serious, Dede. It's not easy for me at all.
Me cable.
Hey, Beje no kobi view.
I'm off to the mall now.
Introducing the Enterprise app by the Enterprise Group. Access products and services of all our subsidiaries at your own convenience on your smartphone, tablet, or PC. The app allows you to automatically calculate your premium, view your policy status, renew your policy, submit a service request, register a claim, and check a claim status. Make online payments via mobile money or debit card, and enjoy so many other useful features. Download the app today by tapping the Play Store or the App Store icon on your smartphone and searching for Enterprise Advantage app. Select the app and install on your phone. Also scan this QR code right now to download the app, or visit my.enterprisegroup.net.gh on your PC to use it on the web.
Enterprise, your advantage.
You're welcome back from that break. So we are still in the 2021 edition of Business Roundtable, of course, brought to us by Ishmael Yamson and Associates and powered by Metro TV. We've listened to two distinguished presentations already. We are going to have the third one, and then we'll open up the floor for the questions. We understand that quite a number of questions are coming through on Zoom and on Facebook as well. So kindly continue putting them through. When we are set with the third one, we'll have all of these questions and get answers from the whole of our panel, after which we'll come back for the second round of presentations. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to present to you the third presenter for the morning, and her name is Charlotte Osei. I'll read a bit of her background, and I'll try as much as possible to do this very quickly. She's a lawyer with 26 years' experience in the public and private sectors. She holds a Master of Laws degree, LLM, from Queen's University, Ontario, Canada, and a Master's in Business Leadership, MBL, from the University of South Africa, Pretoria. LLB Honorable degree from the University of Ghana, Legon, and BL from the Ghana School of Law. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlotte Osei has previously served as first female chairperson of Ghana's Electoral Commission and first female chairperson of Ghana's National Commission for Civic Education. She was also a chairperson of the Executive Board of the African Capacity Building Foundation in Zimbabwe and a former president of the African Association of Election Authorities. I'll jump a bit of it and come to. In 2019, Charlotte was appointed by the United Nations and the government of Afghanistan as an international electoral commissioner to the Electoral Complaints Commission of Afghanistan. Prior to this, in 2017, Charlotte led the ECOWAS fact-finding mission to Sierra Leone ahead of that country's 2017 elections and was deputy head of ECOWAS fact-finding mission to Nigeria ahead of the 2019 elections. She also served as the technical expert legal to ECOWAS long-term observer mission to the Nigerian 2019 general elections. In 2020, which is last year, she led another ECOWAS technical mission to Liberia to clean up the country's voter roll ahead of December 2020 senatorial elections. She manages a commercial and corporate law firm, Prime Attorneys, which she founded in 2008. In 2020, she started a TV show for coaching and mentoring young entrepreneurs, and this is very key for us. The Business Compass, which she hosts. She is also the convener of the 30 Women Tribe, which supports, encourages, and mentors women. Charlotte holds many academic awards and distinctions and is a published writer. Charlotte is married and blessed with children. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to help me welcome for the third presentation, Miss or Mrs. Charlotte Osei. Oh, please help me welcome her appropriately, and then let's pay rapt attention to her presentation.
Thank you very much, Chrissy, and thank you for having me at the 2021 Business Roundtable. Kudos to Ishmael Yamson and Associates. I particularly think that this year's theme is a brilliant one. Youth-driven and youth-centered development and the role it's going to play in Africa's future. I don't think that Africa is going to have a future without that. And after Chrissy's very long introduction, I'm very happy that we're talking about the youth and development and not about elections today. It's a tiring topic. So the two distinguished speakers who went ahead of me really did paint a picture of where we are in Africa in terms of education, training, and the kind of support, particularly from the policy and the private sector levels that the youth need. But I just wanted to do a quick run through this. So Africa has 19% of the global youth population. That's huge. And these are 2015 stats. 60% of Africa's population is below 25 years. That should give us cause to pause and think. That makes 226 million people. Every year, 11 million young Africans join the labor market. And every year, Africa produces 3.7 million formal jobs. So that's a gap that we create every year, and it just keeps growing and it keeps accumulating. All these stats are projected to increase by 42% by 2030. So clearly, African governments and the people of Africa have a lot of work to do. Depending on how we look at it, and if we don't manage the youth population properly, we're either looking at a big crisis in a very short term, or we're looking at a huge opportunity. But it all depends on the decisions we take today and what we choose to do concerning the youth of Africa. In thinking through this topic, I really thought that the race to development is really, it's a global race. It is a race in many senses. And it's like a relay race. And a lot really depends on what has happened before and what is going to happen after. And if we look at it very well, African youth are right there in the center. How far they are ahead depends on the actions that have happened with the generations before them. And to be very frank, I don't think we've done a brilliant job. I think that my generation and the generation before, we have failed the generation of youth today and the ones that are coming. And I just want to tell African youth that the baton is now in their hands. The power is in their hands. There is power in that baton, and it may be time for them to snatch it from us. If they really want a better future, I can see Michael squirming beside me, but that's unfortunate. Yeah, they may have to snatch it because it's a relay, and we've run a not very good race so far, and the actions that we take today and the actions that they take today can make the continent. And they need to really wake up and start thinking about how to grab that baton. From what I know, old people in Africa don't hand over the baton very easily. So I'm speaking to the youth, and I want to tell them that they are the solutions that we seek. And I truly believe that, yes, government has a role to play, but the power of the future lies in the business sector. It's going to lie with African entrepreneurs. And there's a myriad of challenges which they have, which we need to address. And again, I do not think that the older generation have the capacity, the energy, or the mindset to effectively address these challenges. Even if they have the capacity, they may not have the energy, and when they have the energy and the power, I don't see that they have the right mindset. So it's going to fall back on the youth. I want to talk about the power of one, and I want to illustrate that with two Ghanaian personalities, especially because I think 71% of our audience is Ghanaian, and I hope the other people watching from around Africa would find inspiration in these two personalities. Very well known in Ghana, Teta Kwashi and Esther Oklu. So Teta Kwashi was born in 1842, and most of us know the story of Teta Kwashi. He was a blacksmith, and he traveled to work in Equatorial Guinea in 1870. In 1876, he returned to Ghana. Just after 6 years, he was 34. And he carried some cocoa seedlings with him. He planted this at Mampong in 1879, and on a side note, his hobby was farming. Now, eventually, the seedlings that he brought from owning cocoa farms and sending their children to school. There's employment. We talk about cocoa roads. We talk about scholarships. Our national brand is strongly identified with our cocoa, the quality of our cocoa beans and our chocolate. There's all kinds of spillover industries. We have chocolate factories, we have soap and cream making industries today, and it's all because of the actions of one man, Teta Kwashi. And I think it's completely impossible today to sit and really quantify in numerical terms just the impact and the value that Teta Kwashi has brought to this country. Another example I'd want to bring up is Esther Oklu. She was born in 1919, probably lesser known than Teta Kwashi, but I think a very impactful figure as well. She was a founder of the Women's World Banking in Ghana, which we've collapsed. She was born into poverty, and she had to go away from home to school. And because of that, because her family did not have a lot, she had to figure out how to preserve food she took from home, which she had to eat while she was in school. And just from her own experiences in food preservation, when she was a teenager, she started a food preservation business. She started selling orange marmalade. And from there, she founded this industry, which really is about protecting the value in the food chain. So today we have all these Nkulenu products. And then we have so many other people who have come onto the food preservation value chain without knowing that it all started because one woman pioneered this. Prior to this, no one had tried it, at least not on a commercial basis. So again, with Esther Oklu, we see the value she's brought to the agricultural food chain. The many businesses today that have created employment for people in this industry, the national impact, the employment. Only difference really between youth and old age is knowledge. If you know when you're young, then you can do what the older ones cannot do. So I think the youth clearly have the advantage. And it's for this reason that we started Business Compass last year. In engaging young entrepreneurs, we just realized that there was a lot of passion, but all the other elements you needed to create sustainable businesses, businesses that could survive generations, businesses that, and I'm happy that the speakers who went on before me talked about education, they talked about skills, they talked about getting capacity. You find that a lot of youth who go into business have passion, but the capacity to really make business work is lacking. And so there's some humility that is needed, there's some self-reflection that is needed, and they need to spend some time building capacity. Capacity really determines what you can take. And so you find a lot of them tell you that they need equity, they need money, they need capital. But when you sit and you engage with them, you realize that their businesses are not structured to even contain the kind of capital that they're looking for. And sometimes the numbers are just too small when you're dealing on an African scale. the amounts that the venture capital firms are willing to give out, our firms do not have the capacity to absorb it. So they really need to spend some time upskilling and building capacity. They need to structure their businesses in a way that makes it work. You need to have boards, board of directors, you need to have board of advisors, you need to bring on the capacity that you know you don't have. And that's what is going to make them attractive to, even if you're not doing the same thing, you can do similar things or create your own little business ecosystem, and that puts you in a stronger position to deliver. So we need to learn to value collaboration over competition. I think we've focused too much on competition, and it just makes us hate it. It doesn't really help us. And there's a saying that if you want to be incrementally better, you need to be competitive. But if you want to be exceptionally better, you need to be cooperative. And I think the African Continental Free Trade Act also gives them a lot of opportunities to collaborate, not just within their own countries, but across borders. The A stands for attitude, and I think Abena hinted at this. African youth really need to spend time working on their attitude and their values. We see a lack of integrity in a lot of business practices in how they run their business. We see a lot of sharp businesses which they think is being smart, but which doesn't work for them in the long run. We see a lot of indiscipline. If you're not financially disciplined, it's very hard to be successful with your business. And we also see the quick rich thing is there, but I think that's also the example that they've been shown. So they may need to sit down and re-examine who their role models are. But there's definitely the need to work on attitudes. Ethics matter in business, and the thing about business is you never know who is watching, but somebody's always watching, and you may get away with some things in the short term, but you would not get away with them in the long term. And I think it's also social media. There's such an emphasis on building reputation without building character. So those moral feelings come up eventually. So I think the advice would be that they need to work on that and also recognize that this is a long-term journey. So your core values would always come to play. And really, your values, you need to define what your values are, because they're kind of like your guardrails. When you are in a conflict situation, they will tell you which way to go. Are you going to put your employees first? Are you going to put ownership over professionalism? Are you going to have a mindset of continuous improvement? What is your why? Why are you doing the business? Is it to provide something for society, or it is just for personal gain? You need to define all this before you even go into business. The other thing is knowledge. You find that people think that business is a matter of luck, is a matter of a big break, is a matter of having the right connections, but there's also knowledge that you need to run a business successfully. There's the art and the science of business, and you need to learn both to succeed in business. You need to understand finance, you need to understand marketing, you need to understand strategy. There's a science to this. And there's also the art. There's a business language that you need to learn. There's the etiquette of business. So I really want to speak to African youth that you need to really invest in getting knowledge. It's very difficult to go far in business without acquiring basic business skills and knowledge that you need to succeed. I'll move quickly on to the E. The E for me stands for embracing, and there are two things I think people need to embrace. One is technology, and I think Joe spoke to that. Technology helps you overcome a lot of boundaries and do a lot of things that you may have found difficult to do prior to the introduction of technology. And living in a borderless globe like we live in now, there's a lot of borders that technology can help you cross if you embrace it properly. And of course, like Abena said, there are those who are embracing technology for other reasons. Well, let's focus on those who want to do right for today. The other thing I think African youth need to embrace is failure. I think that they listen too many times to a lot of motivational people who only speak to their successes. And it's very easy to focus on the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates of this world, but there's so many lessons also learn from failure. And even for those big entrepreneurs, if you probe a bit deeper, you would find that they had several failings before they succeeded. So there's the need to embrace failure, learn from the examples of other people, where they failed and why, and also keep trying and not get discouraged if you try and you fail, just knowing that failure is really a part of the journey to success, and it's very difficult to find success without finding failure. So you need to embrace failure, and you need to embrace technology. And the S is for structure. Almost every episode we've had on Business Compass has been a failure of structure. And young people do not really recognize the value of structure. And the fact that you cannot build a sustainable business that is going to go across generations if you do not structure the business properly. There are laws to business. You need to follow those laws. If you do not follow those laws, you cannot even attract financing. Stanbic is not going to give you any money, neither would ABSA. So you need to really embrace structure and spend some time on structure and respect the process. There is a process to this, and growth doesn't come overnight. Finally, I'd like to say this. When I talk to a lot of young people, I see them in a hurry to show off the trappings of success. And I found this verse in the Bible, which says, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. I think it's very important that when you're young, forget those of us who are older, some of the very long-term mindset, and you need to appreciate the fact that the work that you're doing as an entrepreneur has generations